All right. Big welcome to everyone. Let's see here. Make a little bit of adjustments and we're ready. All right. Well, welcome to this episode of the Abuse series, episode 4. And I'd like to continue this series with something very important that barely anybody really talks about, and that's the issue of child-to-parent abuse. That's right, we have children abusing their parents, sometimes on a daily basis, and the parents feel ashamed and don't want to report it, and so the abuse continues. So we're going to get into the different forms of child-to-parent abuse. In the previous episode, we spoke of domestic violence, and we even had a spanking episode. So now, the abuse is coming from a child. There's a difference. If you're a parent out there, loving your kids does not mean tolerating evil behavior. Because just because they're children, it doesn't mean that they're not capable of violence, cruelty, and even murder. So I'm not asking you to suspect your children right off the bat. I'm just saying be very careful, because such things do happen every year. And so let's just jump into it. Alright, so child behavior as abusive. Let's see, if others in the family feel threatened, intimidated, or controlled by it, and if they believe that they must adjust their own behavior to accommodate threats or anticipation of violence. See, that's what I'm talking about. You know, parents should not have to adjust themselves to the child's behavior. It is a child who should be adjusting their behavior to their parents, as long as their parents are not abusive towards them. Because we also have cases where parents abuse their children, and then therefore the children want to abuse the parents. So violence begets violence, right? And so does abuse. Yelling, arguing, challenging, sarcastic, and belittling comments. Sounds like the online world, doesn't it? Threats, name-calling, swearing. This is where it all originates. So people who come online and they're all negative, that's, they can argue for a while or whatnot, but we have no idea how their domestic life is. That's why I always say trolls and haters, they live miserable lives offline. I have to bring that up. That's the only reason why they do what they do. So I always offer them help. I'm like, hey, there's no need to vent your anger online. I can help you if you need somebody to talk to. People are constantly angry who even put angry in their names, online. Or some other evil word like, some edgy term or word, trying to be edgy, trying to seek attention too much. They should have normal names, something interesting or intriguing, or just normal, right? So hitting, slapping, punching, kicking, shoving and pushing, breaking and throwing things, punching holes in the walls, that's very common. Throwing down the stairs, oh my goodness. Spitting. Intimidations and controlling the running of the household. I've seen little kids yell at their parents, I'm in charge now, when daddy's not home. I've even heard about it. Mind games, unrealistic demands, running away from home, or staying out all night, lying, threats to hurt or kill, threats to run away, threats to commit suicide or hurt themselves, degrading the parent or other family members, or withholding affection. So if there's a problem, you have to solve it. You can't just ignore problems, people. I see people online, they say, ignore the drama. Don't pay attention to the trolls. I'm like, no, you guys, you're training yourselves to be losers, cowards, It's not that you waste your time with people who are stuck in this type of, demented behavior here. They're not all there, right? It's just that you got to either put them in their place for their own safety or just address it really quickly and let it go. But when you have to deal with your own family, you can't do that. The online world is not the same as the offline world. So that's your priority. You have to settle these problems. Like it or not, you can't just be dismissive because things are only going to get worse. Stealing money or parents' belongings. Selling family possessions, destroying the home or parents' belongings, demanding parents buy things they can't afford, incurring debts the parents must cover. These are far more common than you might believe. And that's just an introduction to the many forms of abuse. So we're going to kind of brisk by these next slides. Maria Olivares, bienvenida. And Brandon Mitchell, welcome to the stream. Thanks for showing up. So parenting, it's hard, but parenting a violent child is harder. And that's also what I mean by parenting a disabled child. It's harder. Like it or not, it's going to be more difficult. It can be a nightmare at times, right? It's just so much more difficult. I can't even imagine, and I've talked to people who are in both of those scenarios, parenting disabled kids or parenting kids who are violent, extreme, like just type of extreme behavior. And a lot of kids commit suicide even. They don't just threaten to do it, they do it. And there's always a cause. We live in a life of causality, cause and effect. You can't ignore these things. The signs are there. Here's a book that kind of helps parents with violent children. You guys can pause and read that if you'd like. Most parents, though, they feel ashamed to talk openly about the problem and often feel responsible for how their children are behaving. It's not your fault, unless it is your fault. If you're neglecting teaching your children correctly by spanking them instead of teaching them, be a leader. Just because spanking works doesn't mean it's most of the time, doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. If that were true, then spousal abuse would be okay, right? No. no type of hitting is okay. It's all bad, and it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't matter if you spank on, on the backside. It's just, it's stupid. It's immature behavior, and that's not parenting. So it's becoming worse with poor parenting skills, because you need skills if you're going to be a parent. Especially single parents out there, they have the burden to be both the mother and father, and that's just asking for way too much, but you got to do the best you can do. But it's not your fault if you know you've done everything possible to prevent such behavior, and the children do it anyway. It's not your fault, so stop blaming yourself, because now you're your worst enemy from then on. Child-to-parent violence and abuse. There's a lot of help out there to enhance your professional knowledge whilst improving outcomes for service users and gain a greater understanding of the barriers and approaches to engage with young people and parents in relation to CPVA, child-to-parent violence and abuse. Statistically, child-to-parent violence is one of the most common forms of abuse that is still widely misunderstood and under-recognized. So there's training sessions out there. There is help for people going through this. That's why I always say it's better to live now rather than back then. Because back then, you didn't have these options. You didn't have life coaches like myself. You didn't have a police to call for your problems at home. You couldn't just divorce. No, you were stuck. You were stuck in an abusive marriage, an abusive family. So nowadays, take advantage of all the outlets that you have for help. All right, let's move on here. Child on parent violence. Let's see. Using the following definition, have you experienced child on parent violence? So they did a survey here. Foster carers, birth parents, special guardians, kinship carers, family members, and adopters. Mainly adopters. Any harmful act by a child, whether physical, psychological, or financial, which is intended to gain power and control over a parent or carer. Look at that. 98%, 2016 survey. I bet it's just far worse. Not just with mainly adopters, but I'd say birth parents. Because I myself, if I wasn't as brave and intelligent as I was back then, I'm pretty sure that committing violence against my own parents would be an option, depending on how intelligent I choose to be. Alright, let's go ahead and move on here. Alright. So, what is child-to-parent violence? You're going to see similar slides here, but we have to keep redefining this. Because they're all different. Alright, let's see here. Alright, I think you guys can still hear me. Got a little bit of interference here, but it's rare. It's snowing like crazy right now in Germany, so let me see if this thing goes away. It should. I'm just going to keep going on. Alright, so it has been estimated that between 2 to 5% of young people engage in behavior that can be described as child or adolescent, that's another word for it, to parent violence and abuse, where the abusive behavior is serious and repeated. It is rarely reported, making it a form of hidden harm. It is not a parenting failure. It is not shameful. Form of domestic abuse. There you go. So, commonly physical violence by teenage boys directed towards their mothers. That's the most common case. Most people who have children who hurt them don't realize that they can access support. There you go. Okay. So, here's some myths regarding domestic violence. Children only witness domestic abuse. That's not true. I'm not being physically hurt, so it isn't really abuse. No, it could be psychological abuse or financial abuse or other kinds of forms of abuse. And like neglect, for instance. It can't be domestic abuse that is something that happens between couples. Wrong. This is all family members involved. Domestic abuse is something that only happens to women? No. So men, they also, reluctant to report such abuse because they think, well, I'm a man. Everybody's going to laugh at me. Well, no, because a child abusing you, it's regardless. Doesn't matter if you're a man or not. Domestic abuse, let's see, there are people in worse situations than me. Never say that. There's no competition when it comes to abuse. Any kind of abuse is not acceptable. So those are some myths. Adolescent or child to parent violence. Let's see here. One of the myths around domestic violence is that only occurs between couples, right? We just went over that. It is normal for adolescents to demonstrate healthy anger. Well, I wouldn't say healthy. I'd say acceptable, understandable. Conflict and frustration drawing their transition from childhood to adulthood. Anger should not be confused with violence. There you go. That's a determining factor. Behaviors may include the child lashes out verbally or physically, causing fear or distress to them. The child is stealing or damaging other family members' possessions. The child threatens you or others. The child threatens to harm themselves or engage in risky behavior. Always take threats of self-harm seriously. The child is critical and dismissive of you and your interests. Yeah, that's just not normal. The child blames you or others for their behavior. There you go, a developing narcissist. The child is cruel to pets. They start with pets and then they go to humans. Future bullies and possible murderers or rapists. The child threatens to run away from home if you don't meet their demands. Yeah, they're not running away from home because they're fearful of their parents. These are kids that run away from home because they're out of control. They're dangerous. So, just because somebody runs away from home, it doesn't mean it's the same type of reason for running away. So, elders being abused and they're too scared to report it. Abuse and neglect does not occur in isolation, and an older person may be experiencing or be at risk of more than one kind of abuse or neglect. For example, financial abuse may include an element of physical abuse, or neglect may be a feature of coercive control. Yeah, there's combinations. They are likely to be dependent on the person abusing them, and an older person having problems with their family may be afraid to seek help or report it. Yeah, we went over this. But it's very important to recognize all these angles of abuse. Let's see here. Right, okay, so you're becoming a lot more critical of yourself. Yeah, these are the symptoms. This is very important right here. Don't fall for this because you're supporting the abuser. Doesn't matter who it is in the family or even spousal abuse. Very important, this slide right here. I recommend you pause and read all this. I'll skim through it. You're becoming a lot more critical of yourself. For example, thinking you are stupid or fat or very lucky to have a partner. Yeah, that's Stockholm Syndrome right there. Making excuses in order to justify the abuse. You give up on your own opinions and think your partner is right about everything. Yeah, you start to just go weak. You're feeling more stressed or worried all the time. You feel nauseous or have bad butterflies. This is no way to live, people. Sometimes stress can also stop us eating and sleeping properly or cause us to have headaches. You're scared of how your partner will react to a situation. Yeah, this is fear. You can't be living in fear. You avoid saying something because you don't want to upset your partner. You feel scared when your partner is angry because you can't predict their behavior. You're feeling a pressure to change who you are or move the relationship further than you want to. This is all pressure and fear. This one's very common. You feel like you're walking on eggshells. That's a big red flag in any relationship. You should not feel like you're walking on eggshells. Eggshells is an exaggeration, but that's what it feels like. Every step you take. It's just another mistake. You're staying in more and seeing less of family and friends to avoid arguments with your partner. Yeah, this is a evasive behavior. So those are the warning signs that something's terribly wrong. And I'm going to end the stream with this because this is what it could lead to. Man confesses to killing his parents. Yeah, well, it could be a daughter killing her father. And actually, just because it's rare annually doesn't mean that it doesn't take place. It doesn't matter if a statistic is a low percentage. It still happens. And when you amplify that percentage, it's hundreds of people, it's thousands of people every year. When this could have all been prevented by taking care of problems, not being evasive of problems, situations, even if it's silly arguments, squash them, deal with them. Because this is a possibility. It's not an exaggeration. We don't even know why he killed his parents. Maybe his parents abused him. Spanking. Started by spanking, and then later on, verbal and more abusive, violent, physical abuse. It could have been. We don't know. You'd have to go case by case, and then see who's telling the truth. It's the old judicial mess, trying to figure out who's telling the truth. So what I do with situations is, if it's too extreme, I'll let them go. Like, with people online, I'm like, okay, you got problems. But people offline, if I can help it, I will, but if it could lead to a legal mess, I'm not going to get involved. So just be careful who you try to help out there, because sometimes they want somebody to lash back at. Like somebody like this, capable of doing the worst. So this was a very important stream. I didn't want to bore you guys by reading the slides too much. You guys could go back and pause those. Do some research on your own. I highly recommend it. This is another installment of the Abuse series, which I believe is very necessary because not everything is butterflies and rainforests, fairy tales. Your life can be a fairy tale if you read my book and watch my movie. That's a great start. And I can coach you through the rest, or that might actually be sufficient if you believe in it, if you follow it to the letter. Other than that, I can't force a camel to drink from the river, right? I can lead you to it. And give you free content, from the bottom of my heart. Time out of my life to share with you guys, dedicated towards trying to make this world a better place. So please check out the recent interview I had with Rice Crispy and subscribe to his channel. And big shout out to those who showed up. Let me check the chat right quick. Let's see who we got in here. Oh, nice. We got some comments. Well, let's go over them. Thank you so much. This is like gifts. They're always a gift, yeah. I just finished watching your interview with Rice Crispy. Loved it. Oh, thank you so much, Maria. That's so nice. You're an early bird. You really are an early bird. Right, you can have an opinion on some of these channels. They come after you. Yeah. My parents are gone, but I never, or would never put my hands on my parents. Well, you must have had great parents, Maria. Not everybody has great parents. Mine turned abusive. So I'm glad I'm gone, They're still alive, though. See, it's really awkward. Sometimes I feel so happy for other people who never had bad parents. I'm like, good for you. I wish I could have had you. But, it made me stronger. And that's the way I just use the negativity and turn it into positivity. And move on. Learn from the history and make yourself stronger. Welcome, Northwoods Press and Mountain Girl. Thanks for attending. Let's see here. Yeah, you guys are all greeting each other. Nice. All right, so thank you so much, Maria, for those comments. Really appreciate it. And hope you guys get ready for what? What is it, Friday? Yeah, Friday. Get ready for Friday. Make sure you kick those socks off. And don't work too hard, for crying out loud. So I know this was a serious stream for today, but it's necessary, as I said. Let's see. Uruguay Frank, welcome to the stream. And that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much, and much love to everybody. And have a good night whenever it comes. Thank you.